Hello everyone, hope your day is going well. Today we didn't have class because of the PSATs. And what I like to do with this screencast is to talk about what you're going to work on. The first thing is going to involve finishing answering questions involving George Washington and the French and Indian War. The last time we met, I shared this Google Doc with you through the classroom. It starts with Washington's first mission, and you needed to read through this information and to answer the questions in it. And in the last class, we covered the response for the first question, which was, why did Major Washington volunteer to give the British demand to the French? Explain in detail. We'll go through that again the next time we meet, but I would like you to finish answering the questions in this Google Doc regarding Washington's role in the French and Indian War. What I also shared with you the last time we met was a Google Slides presentation involving the French and Indian War. And I provided you with information on the first, the French-Indian War, the beginnings. So what I'm going to do right now, folks, is I'm going to provide you with the rest of the information for this presentation. Please listen carefully to what I have to say and type in the information that is missing. I'm also going to be adding some information in addition to what's on each slide, as well as referring to the maps that I sent you in the classroom. So if we look at the information in this Google Slides presentation on the French and Indian War, we're going to see information in the next slide involving the Albany Plan. And I'm going to load up that information so you can see right now what I'm talking about. The Albany Plan comes about even before the fighting had started. The British asked its colonies to prepare for war and to negotiate an alliance with the Iroquois. This indigenous people controlled much of western New York, where the French would actually have to travel through. So what happens in 1754, the colonial delegates with Iroquois leaders, they meet in Albany, New York. They don't really come to an agreement or an alliance, but what the Iroquois promised is that they promised to offer some support. Now, what also comes out of this meeting is the Albany Plan of Union. And I would like for you to add some information regarding the Albany Plan of Union. It was developed by a committee led by Ben Franklin, and it proposed that the colonies form a federal government. And that was something that eventually we'll see going down the lines, the formation of a federal government. So the Albany Plan of Union was developed by a committee led by Ben Franklin, and it proposed that the colonies form a federal government. Please have this added to your copy of this Google Slides presentation. Now, what we also have here is the different battles that the French and Indian War will include. And the leader is going to be a man named General Braddock, Edward Braddock, who is going to be defeated and killed at Fort Duquesne in 1755. If you look at the maps that I shared with you in the classroom, Fort Duquesne makes up, for the most part today, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What's also going to happen in 1755 is that the British are going to lose at Fort Niagara Crown Point, which is on the west side of Lake Champlain. And again, if you look at the maps that I provided you, you can see the location of this fort. What's going to happen also is that Braddock's forces are going to be decimated. George Washington is going to be one of the few British officers to actually survive the battle. And a number of deaths are going to occur as a result of Native Americans fighting against the British. And what's going to happen with the French and Indian War is that the fighting is going to spread to Europe. And it won't end until into the 1760s. But what's also going to happen in 1758, looking at this last point here, is that King George II is going to select William Pitt as his prime minister. And he's going to attempt to turn the tide of the war. And what Pitt does immediately is that he changes British strategy in fighting this war. Now, you'll see here with a slide that there's two different distinct styles of fighting, which we'll talk about when we meet again. The British were disciplined, traditional style of fighting, the formation, standing up. But what the Native Americans and the French eventually do is they developed guerrilla warfare. That's the type of fighting that they use to be effective. There's a movie that was made many years ago, The Last of the Mohicans, that demonstrates this, and we'll see this again when we meet again in class. But turning back to William Pitt, what is going to happen, and again, please look carefully at your copy of the presentation and typing in the information that is missing, is that he's going to be a spender. He's going to spend a lot of money on the military in the colonies, as well as increasing the number of troops on the frontier or the North American forces. So he's going to go all in, William Pitt, in winning this war. And what he's also going to do is he's going to make better use of the British Navy to cause trouble or to bottle up the French fleet and troops. But what's also important about William Pitt is that he was a good judge of talent. He picked a young officer by the name of James Wolfe. Wolfe is spelled W-O-L-F-E. He makes him a general at the age of 31, which was promoting someone over many senior officers. Doesn't really go over that well, but it does pay off because the British are going to win the French and Indian War, and they're going to win, indeed, defeating the French at the Plains of Abraham in Quebec. And again, if you look back at your map, you can see where Quebec is located today in Canada. Now, the agreement that will end the French and Indian War is known as the Treaty of Paris, 1763. The French give up most of their claims to land in North America. They were only allowed to have a small number of islands off the coast of Canada. The British are going to take control of the eastern half of the Mississippi Valley, which is going to be important for them in terms of trade and territory. And really what the Treaty of Paris does is that it doubled British colonial holdings in North America, the positives. But on the downside, or the negatives, is that the British spent a fortune to win and they nearly bankrupt their economy. They're going to have to find a way to bring back their economy, and that's going to be through taxes and by taxing the colonists, who are not going to be exactly happy with that. And I always like to leave this thought here on the bottom, is that the British might have won the war, but they lost the peace. The word won is in quotes and peace is in quotes, because when the American Revolution comes around, the British are going to be all by themselves. There is not a single person who's going to come to their aid in terms of European powers. And who is going to side with the colonists but the French? And people will argue, if it was not for the help of the French or the Marquis de Lafayette, the colonists would probably have not prevailed in the American Revolution. So the British might have won the war, but they had lost really the peace. Okay, so what we have here is this slide dealing with victory. because now the British have this large colonial holding in North America. As I said to you, William Pitt had borrowed huge sums of money for the war, and he needed to repay the loans. The British debt was just incredible. The Empire of the British also required a number of administrators. That's going to cost money. And there's going to be conflicting land claims to land, where you're going to have various colonial groups that are going to claim these new territories in the Mississippi River Valley, right around here, which is going to be another problem for the British in administering this area. So what they're going to do, in a sense, is draw a line. It's going to be called the Proclamation Line of 1763. The idea being is that you were forbidden to settle west of the Appalachian Mountains, around here. Again, the colonists are going to believe that is a violation of their rights, that they should have the right to settle beyond the Appalachian Mountains going west. They're also going to be upset again over the issue of taxation, because remember, Britain is bankrupt and they need to raise money, and the colonists are going to be taxed. And what this is going to lead to here, the last slide, is a tremendous amount of unrest in the colonies. You're going to have Britain wanting the colonists to help pay for the war, and now British troops stationed in North America. They knew that merchants were smuggling goods out of the colonies without paying customs duties on tax on imports and exports. So what they do is a law is passed that allowed smugglers to be tried at a new Vice Admiralty court in Nova Scotia instead of colonial courts, a court in front of their own peers. Instead, it's more of a military court. And again, this is not going to go over well for the colonists. And another thing about these courts is they didn't have juries. They did not follow British common law. And again, the colonists objected because these courts denied them of their rights as British citizens. And again, with this unit, we're looking at the road to the revolution. Eventually, things are going to boil over between the British and their colonial subjects in North America. And before closing here, again, I would like to show you the maps that I want you to refer to. They're located right here. This is the map I'm talking about. You will see up here when I talked about Crown Point, Niagara, Montreal, 1760, Braddock defeated by the French and Indian troops at Fort Duquesne. So please make sure you consult this map in going over this information. If you have any questions about what I've talked about here, of course, feel free to reach out to me during academic assistance. I'm available at 1:50 every day after school, or I could talk to you during lunch. Take care, and I'll see you the next time we meet.